In the suburbs of Washington, D.C., he looked like every other government employee. A husband, a father, a loyal American. Every morning, he kissed his family goodbye, picked up his briefcase, and drove toward one of the most secure buildings in the United States. For years, nobody suspected that inside that briefcase, America was bleeding secrets. To understand his betrayal, you first have to understand his world. The Cold War. A silent conflict fought not with armies, but with information. Every satellite image, every submarine route, every nuclear launch code, every human source. In this war, information was power, and power was worth killing for. He wasn't born a traitor. In fact, he looked like the perfect recruit. Intelligent, disciplined, ambitious. The kind of young man agencies fought to hire. And when the FBI opened its doors, he walked straight through them. Not as a suspect, but as a protector. The badge meant something. Authority, duty, sacrifice, and above all, trust. Because once you wore that badge, people stopped questioning your intentions, and that would become his greatest weapon. But betrayal rarely starts with ideology. It starts with pressure, debt, ego, addiction, private decisions made in quiet places where no one from the bureau was watching. At least that's what he thought. At home, everything looked normal. Birthday parties, homework, family dinners, vacation photos, the perfect American life. But double lives never start with two identities. They start with one secret. Then one night, he crossed a street that changed history. No witnesses, no cameras, no second thoughts, just one man walking toward the enemy. And inside his coat pocket, a letter, offering secrets for cash. No speeches, no ideology, no dramatic confession, just paper, names, locations, operations, human beings sold by the page. And with one envelope, the Cold War changed, thousands of miles away inside Moscow. Men who had spent decades hunting American secrets could hardly believe what they were reading. Because this wasn't stolen intelligence. This wasn't intercepted radio traffic. This was coming directly from inside the FBI. Espionage doesn't always happen in dark alleys, or hidden bunkers, or smoke-filled rooms. Sometimes it happens in public, in parks, on sidewalks, in places so ordinary they become invisible. By now, he had moved beyond letters. This was tradecraft. And tonight, a simple newspaper was worth millions. Intelligence agencies call it a dead drop. No meeting, no eye contact, no conversation, just an object hidden in plain sight. Inside this hollow bolt, names, coordinates, operational plans, and identities of men and women who trusted America to keep them alive. Every file he delivered answered questions Moscow had spent years asking. Who was working for America? Where were they stationed? What were they reporting? Who could be turned? And who needed to disappear? To Soviet intelligence, he wasn't just a source, he was a shopping list. Then the disappearances began. One source missed his check-in. Another failed to answer. Another simply vanished without a trace. No goodbye, no warning, just silence. Inside Langley and inside the bureau, something was very wrong. And no one knew the leak was sitting in their meetings. At the same time, his life began to change. Better hotels, better cars, private schools, luxury vacations, all funded not by his government salary but by a foreign power, paying him to betray his own. And still, nobody asked how he could afford it. Over time, the payments grew, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, then more. By the end, he would collect millions, making him one of the highest paid spies in modern history. Inside America's intelligence community, panic was spreading. Sources were dying. Operations were collapsing. Entire networks were going dark. Some suspected Soviet surveillance. Some blamed bad tradecraft. Some blamed technology. Almost nobody suspected betrayal. And that made him even more dangerous. He attended the investigations, reviewed the evidence, read the damage reports, studied the missing persons. And while others searched for the traitor helped lead the search. Sometimes the safest place to hide is inside the investigation itself. Then finally someone noticed something. The names, the timing, the losses, the geography. Individually, they looked random. Together they formed a pattern that pointed not outside the building, but straight through it. And for the first time, the hunter was becoming the hunted. By the late 1980s, the losses were no longer isolated. Too many agents, too many operations, too many funerals. Inside the bureau, a quiet decision was made. No press releases, no announcements, no paper trail. Someone inside the FBI was selling secrets. And now the hunt would begin. The suspect pool was small. only a handful of people had access to everything that had been compromised. Veteran agents, analysts, supervisors, men and women who had spent their lives earning trust. And somewhere on that wall was the traitor. Spies lie, people lie. But numbers usually don't. So investigators stopped looking at classified files and started looking at money. Mortgages, vacations, private school tuition, luxury watches, a government salary that somehow paid for an extraordinary life. At first it seemed impossible, because the man they were looking at didn't live like a federal employee. He lived like someone who never worried about money. And once investigators saw the house, the cars, the lifestyle, they stopped asking if there was a spy and started asking how long he'd been doing it. In counterintelligence, nothing is beneath investigation, not garbage, not receipts, not handwritten grocery lists, because spies don't always make mistakes in the field. Sometimes they make them at home. And tonight, the Bureau was digging through 30 years of ordinary trash. Then investigators discovered something else. Late-night copying, files printed after hours, documents that should never have left the building. Not proof, not yet, but enough to turn suspicion into strategy. To catch a spy, you have to become invisible. So investigators entered his home, installed cameras, microphones, sensors, devices so small he could live with them for weeks without ever knowing. And now, for the first time, they weren't guessing. They were watching. His calls were monitored, his bank records cross-referenced. His movements logged, every stop, every purchase, every unexplained detour. Piece by piece, the mask was cracking, and behind it wasn't ideology, or patriotism, or revenge, just greed. Then one night, through a hidden camera, they finally saw it. The briefcase, not just paperwork, not just notes, but cash, classified files and materials no innocent man could explain. After years of hunting, America's most dangerous spy finally had a face, even if that face had been sitting inside the FBI the entire time. Somewhere in the ancient Mediterranean, this machine had to be born. Not in a palace, not in a temple, but in a workshop. A place filled with metal dust, mathematics, and obsession. Somewhere, anonymous hands shaped bronze with impossible precision. Hands we will never know. No portraits, no biographies, no signatures. Only gears, only ratios, only evidence. And that evidence suggests something almost unbelievable. That more than 2,000 years ago, someone understood the universe well enough to build it into a box. Many historians believe the answer may begin with one name: Archimedes, mathematician, inventor, engineer, a man centuries ahead of his time. Ancient writings describe mechanical devices, planetary models, machines capable of calculating celestial motion, and while no direct proof connects him to Antikythera, the fingerprints of his thinking are everywhere. Precision, ratios, elegance, mathematics made physical. Was this his legacy? Or was he merely one part of a forgotten scientific revolution? When modern scientists finally decoded the inscriptions, the machine began to speak, and what it said changed everything. Not mythology, not superstition, not philosophy, science, hard science. It tracked the sun, the moon, planetary cycles, eclipse predictions, even the timing of Olympic Games. This wasn't decorative, it wasn't symbolic, it was operational, a working computer built before Christ. And suddenly, history had a problem. Because if this existed, what else existed? What other machines were built, used, improved, and lost? How many discoveries never made it into textbooks? How many inventions were erased by fire, war, collapse, or time? The Antikythera mechanism wasn't just an artifact, it was evidence. Evidence that humanity may have climbed higher much earlier than we ever imagined. Empires fall, libraries burn, teachers die, students disappear. Knowledge is fragile, and history is not a straight line. It rises and falls, again and again. Perhaps machines like Antikythera weren't rare. Perhaps they were common among those who knew. And perhaps entire branches of science vanished with the civilizations that built them. Today, technology is helping us see what ancient eyes once built. X-ray imaging, 3D reconstruction, digital simulation, layer by layer, tooth by tooth. The machine reveals its secrets. And with every discovery, one truth becomes harder to ignore. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't luck. This was engineering, intentional, measured, precise. And then, another mystery, because divers believe the shipwreck may not have given up everything. New sonar scans suggest more debris, deeper, farther, still untouched. Which raises a chilling possibility. What if Antikythera wasn't alone? What if more machines are still waiting in the dark? Because if knowledge traveled, then technology traveled. From Greece to Egypt to Rome to lands farther east, ideas moved with merchants, with scholars, with sailors, with conquerors, and perhaps somewhere another civilization built machines. We have yet to find, but maybe the biggest mystery isn't the machine. Maybe it's us. Why do we assume the past was primitive? Why do we imagine progress only moves forward? What if history is filled with forgotten peaks? Civilizations that touched brilliance only to disappear before they could tell us how. Pulled from the bottom of the sea, covered in corrosion, silent for 2,000 years, this machine did more than rewrite history. It challenged it. Because the Antikythera mechanism doesn't just tell us what ancient people knew. It forces us to ask, what else have we forgotten? How many discoveries lie buried beneath oceans, sand, and silence? And if one machine could survive 2,000 years waiting for the right eyes to see it, what else is waiting? This is Lumen Life. If stories like this remind you how little we truly know, subscribe and step deeper into the mysteries history forgot.